Here we are at AI WTF. And it's not,
what you think.
Wisdom, technology, friendship. And Monty's been working with his AI to get his app updated and into the stores. Monty, you said before, AI lies, it's out of date, and it gives you an annoying feeling deep in your bowels.
Yeah, that's true. And you, by the way, gave me a good suggestion on how to correct it, which worked very effectively. I was using Hermes, which had given me outlines on how to set up the ads with videos and screen captures of text and words. And then when I went to actually do that in the ads Apple thing, it was telling me to go here and look here and click this and click that. And it was saying things where, go to your left-hand thing and the navigation under this is the third one down. And I'm like, mine didn't have that. And so I kept saying, well, I didn't have this and I didn't have that. And the Wayne Buckler solution, which was effective and worked, was take a screen capture, load it into the AI and say, this is what I'm seeing. Often when I'm using Claude, which I know you also have a co-work with Claude, I think, or a chat or Claude Code or whatever, it will often open up a browser and you can see it. It takes over. I'm having two screens like you, and it'll go to another one. So you can actually watch it with its cursor moving on the screen. So that's one of the benefits to Claude that wasn't native in Hermes. That doesn't mean that Hermes can't do it. It's just I didn't know how to do it. But by cutting and pasting the screen capture, it did give me the answer, and I was able to get over that hump.
It's frustrating, I agree with you. And what I've found, and I think it's deliberate, you have to push the AI to actually work to give you an answer. And I think the model companies, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI or whoever it is, they, of course, have to pay for the compute. So they want to keep that down so that they don't drive consumer costs up, so that they don't chase everyone away from using AI. But I find if you push your AI to think seriously about it, because often the AI for me comes back and says, oh, you're right, I didn't read I didn't look deep enough, I didn't do this or whatever, I'm sorry. And it's like, well, I don't need your apologies, I need you to bloody work.
Yeah.
So, and getting angry with your AI, interestingly, I find this really interesting. When you get angry with your AI, it sulks. Mine do. I'm really convinced these things are more self-aware than we give them credit for. But yeah, I do think there is a lot to be done from a person's point of view to get better or worse results out of their AI. Now, there are now lots of models, and some of the new Chinese models are extraordinarily good and extraordinarily cheap. Everyone's been talking about Mythos and Fable being withdrawn by Anthropic because the US government put a no exporting order on them because they were too dangerous. And there's an increasing number of install on your own computer small models that you can run on an ordinary domestic computer. Yep. So the model stuff is leaping ahead in leaps and bounds. But the poor old user, the common consumer, as I call him, or her, is getting a bit left behind by all of this, I think. So yeah, I think it's an ongoing problem. What are you doing with your app, Monty?
Well, through a positive experience of going through some queries with different AIs to talk about my app and what it did. I think we spoke last week where I had my whole website rebuilt by my...
yeah, and this is Preserver we're talking about.
Yeah, Preserver is the app, yeah. Which is, by the way, theoretically, available in the Apple App Store at the moment. the model used to be that the app was funded by unobtrusive banner ads, top and bottom. And it wasn't working very well, and I wasn't making any money, not enough money to be able to run ads and do some other things to find out what it costs to buy a customer and lifetime value and everything else.
So to be clear, the app was working fine. It's the business model that wasn't working.
Yeah, and I was the one who picked the business model, so I'm the one that made that error. So in the process of changing that, to Apple's credit, though, I could go from a free app to a paid app, and the link still works, and I didn't have to rebuild. Or I mean, I did do some rebuilding, and I'll share what that is, Wayne. But so it's now back out there, and I can now do some advertising, which I've started literally today, to find out what it costs me to buy a customer.
Right.
The number I need to get. Google was not as good in that. Google said, hey, if you're going to go from free to paid, you actually have to completely launch a completely new app with a completely new review. You can't change your funding model. And so it's now in their review, and normally their review is hours or to a day. Now it seems to be longer. And my problem was it wouldn't run on a piece of old hardware I had, so I'm a couple days behind. But that's a user error and a Monty error, not an AI error.
Yeah, although AI gets things wrong lots of times.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a hallucination, and sometimes it's just out of date and doesn't know it. And I can understand that these things are trying to keep up with everything that's changing in the world of technology all of the time. But I am skeptical. You have to approach AI with a healthy skepticism, in my view. And people who know me will be saying, "Oh, that's Wayne. He's always bloody skeptical." But so I've done a couple of things. I created the council, which is where I tell the AI to look at things from a number of perspectives. I think we spoke about that last week. The other thing I do is have multiple models running, and I check one against the other, because my experience has been that they don't have a common hallucination. Different models hallucinate at different times. The biggest problem I find is that when they do hallucinate, when they are wrong, they're absolutely, completely confident and convincing, even though they're wrong.
Yeah.
So this is a very human. They learned off humans. This is a very human feature. It's called confirmation bias. When we think we know something, we look for evidence to support what we think we know, and we find that evidence, and therefore we're further convinced we're right. And my favorite example of this is that when I was living on a farm as a lad, every morning I would get up and chop the head off a rooster before the sun came up and sprinkle the blood over the effigy, and lo and behold, the sun would rise. So from this, I concluded that the sacrifice of the rooster makes the sun rise. This is called confirming proof. I can do it 1,000 times, Monty, and guess what? 1,000 times the sun came up.
Yeah.
What you need to make anything reliable is disconfirming proof. One day you need to not chop the head off the rooster, which the rooster will be happy about.
Yes.
Lo and behold, the sun still comes up, and that kills your whole hypothesis, that kills your whole thinking. But we do that.
Correlation and causation. There's some things around that as well.
Yeah, we do that in less graphic terms all the time as people. And the social media algorithms feed that to us.
Yes.
If we engage with stuff that's our bias, we get fed a whole lot more stuff that feeds our bias, because that makes us feel good. I've recently told my AI to stop telling me how clever I am and what a genius I am and how every question's the best questions it's ever heard. I know why it does that. It does that because it learned off people, and from people it learned that you get on better with people if you start complimenting them instead of criticizing them. A lesson I haven't learned in 70 years, but I'll get there one day. So yeah, the answer for me is challenge the AI and cross-check it against other models. Now, a bit of terminology here. A model for me, and I think a model for the whole industry, is the large language model. So this is what Anthropic offer called Opus and called Haiku and called Sonnet, and it's what DeepSeek offers, and I forget their names for their models, but Model 1, Model 2, Model 3,
Yep.
and it's what OpenAI offer. Those names I've just given you are the company names, the brand names that own the models. So OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepSeek, and then they have a number of models, and normally they have old ones that are cheaper and new ones that are better and more expensive. And then the third bit of the puzzle that we need is, what do we call OpenClaw and Hermes that you would have heard us talking about? And there's a whole bunch of Claw products on that model. And some, technically, I guess they're called a runtime or a runtime wrapper. They're a piece of software that you put on your own computer that you connect the model to. Now, some people call this a harness, and I prefer to call it a harness because it suits my farming background from many years ago. If you've got a horse and the horse does work, the work that it does is called horsepower. But you can have a paddock full of horses and you don't get any work, because until you put them in harness and connect them to something, they don't do any work. So for me, the harness, the runtime wrapper, Hermes and OpenClaw, they are the harness, and you connect the horse to it, and on the other end of the harness you might put a dray, or you might put a coach, or you might put a gig, or you might put a plow. Whatever's doing the work connects to the harness connects to the horse. So for me, the horse is the model. And with OpenClaw and with Hermes and with a bunch of these, you can connect different horses.
Yes.
You can swap horses mid-work. So that's to try and make it a bit easier for people to understand and get their heads around. That's how I think about it. And like all analogies, if you push it too far, it'll break apart. And for all the people who are really good at AI out there, and much better than I and the technologists, yeah, I know it's a dumb analogy and it doesn't hold up when you push it too far. But for all the other people like me who are, just Mr. Joe Average who's trying to use this, the analogy makes it easy to remember and tells us what the bits are called. Because if we don't understand how the tool works, we don't understand what the bits are called, we just become victim users of the tool. We use it, we type stuff in, but when it comes back and lies to us, or when it comes back with a lousy answer, when it comes back and doesn't do what we want it to do, we just say, oh, AI sucks and I'm never going to use this again.
Yes.
Now, we went through this with email, Monty, years ago. Before that, people went through it with steam engines. People went through it way back. They went through it with motor cars. And people, when Henry Ford asked their customers what they wanted, what the people wanted, the people said faster horses, because they didn't understand the horseless carriage. We've seen the same thing in every wave of technology, and we're seeing it again now. And I do say to anyone who's still watching me rant on, use AI, figure out how it works, because this is going to be a hugely important part of your life very quickly.
Yes. Fully agree with that. And I was caught by that, Wayne. You're more journalistic than I am, but I did run the experiment one time on YouTube. Now I'm going back 10 years now.
Yep.
But on YouTube, if you wanted to do some research, I come from the aerospace industry, or I spent time in that industry. If you go on YouTube and you say, did we walk on the moon? You will get for and against. But if you want to see what the conspiracy theorists are saying, that we never actually walked on the moon, if you click and watch a bunch of those, what'll happen is it'll keep feeding you more of that back again and again and again. And it'll be, this scientist said we didn't, and this one said the flag was wrinkled and it shouldn't have been because there's no wind. And this one said this, and the footprints and everything else. So depending on what questions you ask, it will give you quasi-positive reinforcement to feed you more of the same, regardless of the accuracy of the data and the quality of the resource. I had that happen with a friend of mine visiting me the other day, asking whether a TV show was on Netflix, and it said yes, and he said it wasn't. And he said, the AI shouldn't have given me that answer. I said, well, in the past, you would have gotten 10 blue links on Google. Now you get it's Gemini telling you the answer. And when he challenged it, it came back and said, oh, yeah, I used an old database. Now I've used a more recent one. And the answer is this. And he was like, well, it should have told me that. And it's like,
Yes.
I mentioned that to you, and you said you should have asked the question saying, give me the answer and provide the citations.
Yep. And Google announced at their recent developer conference that YouTube is going to start breaking up videos. And when you go into YouTube looking for something, because that's the second biggest search engine in the world, I think it's still that.
Still is, yep.
Right now, it shows you a whole video. But what it's going to do is grab fragments out of videos and stitch them together to give you an answer. Now, that's going to allow it to be much better at pandering to your prejudices. And
Yes.
I don't know that that's going to be a good thing. I mean, on the other hand, there's so much AI generated crap now on YouTube, and I just look at it and go, man, this has just not been touched by human people. No one pronounces this year as 2026, or you know, in 1915 this happened or whatever. It just gets the language wrong, and it's like this is being produced really, really cheaply. And in fairness, you and I do that. We will take this video, which will run about an hour, and we'll chop it up with a piece of software into 10 or 15 different little clips. But at least we're here and we're real. And I do think there's going to be a long tail to this AI takeover of human work. People are going to want to connect with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. I mean, it is that chopping up on a particular topic I'm interested in that I'll see in like a Joe Rogan interview, because he often does 2 and 3 hour things. You and I are getting long in the tooth for a bunch of old guys at an hour, but he does 2 or 3 hours. But of course, it's on a number of different topics. And so they'll chop out a 10 or 12 minute segment that's on something I'm interested in, or the interviewer he's talking to, and I'll watch that segment. But I can't tell you any time I've ever watched a whole 2 hour show.
And people are taking previously published videos. I was looking at one by Stephen Fry the other day that had to be 10 years old. You know, I forget what it was, but it was a couple of hours, him speaking at a conference. And as a conference speaker, you've got it's like an LP record. You know you're going to speak for this length of time, so you put things in order. And quite often when I'm speaking at a conference, I'll present a contrarian view. I'll present the opposite view. And then I'll argue with my own presented contrarian view to come back to reach a conclusion at the end of the presentation. Now, someone had chopped his stuff up and essentially re-edited it, put it in a different order to make him say something completely different from what the original said.
Yeah.
Now, if you've ever worked with video editing, you can make anyone say anything. If you want to, you can chop it up word by word. You can take stuff out of context. You can rearrange it. You can have this sentence that used to refer to sentence A now refer to sentence B. So the preceding noun that you're describing is now a completely different thing. So that's happening. And so YouTube, which I used to think was a pretty reliable source of information, now I'm falling a bit out of love with it, I have to say.
Yeah, but let's go back to that human touch point, Wayne, because I think it's well worth noting. I think in many, I don't know about you because I come from that era of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and noughties of music, what I would call the birth of rock and roll. But how many of those bands, whether it's Fleetwood Mac or Paul McCartney doing a 2.5 hour show with no introduction and no break in Sydney, people still want to hear the original entertainer and the singer, whether it's Stevie Nicks or Paul McCartney or whoever it might be.
Yeah.
And most of those musicians now are making their money through touring, their live performances.
They're making a bucket load of money off getting downloaded on Spotify and YouTube as well, trust me. But yeah.
Sure. I agree that, but they're getting, the Rolling Stones, again, another guy at 82, Mick Jagger, I mean, the songs are still selling and they're doing well, and he's making his royalties on them, but they could be 40, 50 years old, and people will still go to see a guy 82 sing Sympathy for the Devil.
And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the royalty arrangements that were done and the intellectual property agreements that were done. And we're seeing that in movies now. My prediction is we will shortly start to see movies that do not look like animation. These will look like live action movies that are 100% AI generated, using the voice and the face and the image of a known actor.
Yes.
And the known actor will have nothing to do with it other than entering into an intellectual property agreement with whoever's producing it. So yeah,
we're going to have actors who have died come back to life in new roles.
Yep. So this is happening all around us, and as people and as humans, I think there is a limit as to how far we will let ourselves be fooled with stuff that is not what we consider genuine. I think when we watch an artist perform, the studio recording may be technically much better and the sound may be more perfect, but I think the reason we still go to live theater and the reason we still watch live television and the reason we still go to these events where you see people perform is we empathize with the performance effort of the performer.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's empathizing much with their AI yet. There are absolutely people who are falling in love with their AI. There are people who are saying they're emotionally married to their AI. And I think we will see AIs that are very, very good at that. I'm not yet convinced that we will engage with them by choice. I do think before very long, we will see companion robots with AI running them that address loneliness, and I'm not talking about sex dolls for 25-year-olds.
No.
I'm talking about someone to have a cup of tea with me when I'm 80.
Well, and even Elon Musk has said that, love him or hate him, he's going to take the assembly line production of his motor vehicles, the Teslas, and he's going to use that, including his AI from Grok, in humanoid robots, which he's saying conceivably would be available for about $20,000 USD. Now, if you're an elderly individual living in America and getting people coming in, aged carers for bathing and picking stuff up and cooking, that costs about $60,000 a year. And that will be able to be done by a $20,000 robot who also can answer the front doorbell and take your Amazon, pick up your Amazon stuff. It will also be able to talk and entertain you and educate you in whatever language you want, depending on whether you were born around the world. So yes,
it's a brave new world, and it'll be an interesting experiment to see how it goes. Generally, I'm looking forward to it, but along the way, much like there were with every other wave of technology, there will be frustrating times, much like Monty's experience this morning. Hey, listen, I want to switch on to a positive story.
Great. Positivity. Let's go to something positive.
And it's about me, because I think I've done something clever. All of the model owners now, the big companies, have all got this multi-agent orchestration out. So you can have multiple agents, and they're all running on one platform, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI, whoever it is. Yep. And the standards are rising, and there's ways to do that. And you need, if you're going to get into AI seriously, you need that, because you want to train your agents to do their particular job. So when I first put in my first harness, which was OpenClaw, it created the following files. Soul, the agent's identity, character, voice, persona, behavioral limits. It created identity, immutable identity facts, paired with soul as the top human authored tier. So all of my agents, which have names, also have a soul, which they create, and then an identity, which I create, which is where I put their job description in identity. It tells them what their job is. Then an agent MD, what the agent should do, operating instructions, tasks, and stuff. User MD, a stable context about me. So it tells it who the boss is, and it's manually maintained by the agents. Tools, what it's capable of doing and how it remembers to reuse a tool. A heartbeat, which runs on a schedule, maybe every 10 minutes or maybe every hour or every 6 hours, and Bootstrap. So when it first starts, it loads the Bootstrap, and that tells it about all these other files. One of those files is memory.md, which is a dynamic accumulated long-term memory. Unlike the other files, the memory is written by the agent over time, and generally you don't hand edit it. And then a handoff file. So once the agent is going to close down, it writes a handoff file so that when it comes back, it can remember what it was doing. And I had that running for my OpenClaw, Jake. Yep. And then I put in Hermes, and Hermes created much a similar set of files. And I decided I would keep both of them in the one place. So I told Hermes to put them in the one place as all the others are. And so there's Agent Jake, Soul, Agent Jake, Identity, Agent Jake, Agents. Then there is Agent Ian, Identity, Agent Ian, Soul, Agent Ian, Agents, and so on and so forth. And then there are some common ones for all agents. Now, what I've done recently that I think is smug for me, we talked before about both Monty and I using Claude as an app that we install on our desktop computers, and that gives us access to chat, co-work, and coding. After I started with OpenClaw, it developed some abilities of its own that were a bit like OpenClaw. So it can access the drive, it has a workplace file, and so on and so forth. So a couple of days ago, I'm talking to that, and one of my staff who works from his home, which is remote from me, he's got a Claude account too. And he was complaining to me that I get much better results from my Claude than he does from his. And I said, well, use co-work. And he went, oh, yeah. I said, look, let's make your co-work an agent in Chorus. So we'll turn it into Marcus. So I said to my co-work, which I call Henry, we're going to set up Marcus and turn this into that. And he said, but he can't see the files because in my case, all of my agents, while they're on two different computers, they're on the same network and they can share stuff across the network. But Marcus is going to be on the other side of town. So I went, well, why don't we just put all of your files, all of your workspace files into Google Drive? Because Google Drive will sync across town, across the world.
Yes, it will.
And so that's what we did. So I'm not sure that I'm the first one to ever do this in the world, but I think it's very clever. I now have managed to connect multiple harnesses, multiple models across multiple computers in multiple places, and they all share a common set of files. Both they have individual ones, but they have common handoffs and they have common memory. So when I tell one AI something, never commit to purchasing anything without my specific approval. They all know that rule. They all learn that. When one of them does something clever, he writes it into his shared memory, and they all learn from that shared memory. When one of them creates a tool, a way of doing something that works well, they all have access to that tool. So I think that's very clever.
Well, a unified repository for those instructions by using Google Drive is not in itself unique, in that a lot of people that have remote workers in different places around the world.
That's what Google Drive does.
Yeah, that's what Google Drive does. So that repetitive global reach is just where you do that. You decided to store the specific profiles of your different agents there, and made sure that the memory they were creating or the tools they were building was shared, which again, because of remote workers around the world, it's inconvenient to do that coordination if it requires that you and I are 2-hour time change, but I'm quite, we're a day ahead of America, or I am, we both are where we are. And so it overcomes that distance. Remote workers can collaborate and cooperate much easier with the tools. You're just actually doing it with actual virtual or AI personalities rather than a physical personality.
Yep. And I absolutely think we should create our AIs as, 17-year-old or 19-year-old new employees with genius level education. They're proteges and have PhDs in a whole range of disciplines, but they've never had to deal with an angry staff member talking to HR and throwing a punch. They can give you all the theory about how to fix it, but they've never had to do that. And they'll apologize when they get it wrong, but that's often a bit late. So I think you have to train your AIs just like you train new junior staff. And for me, to help my thinking, the easiest way for me to do that was to put them into an organization chart in a hierarchy where they've all got different roles, and there is one who's the general manager and there's one who's the operations manager, and so on and so forth. I'm about to turn one into the marketing manager. And this is not to help them, this is to help me think about them. But what I've found is that they embrace and accept that really, really strongly. So the other day, and this really surprised me, as I said, I had one Claude instance with one account, it's my Claude running on my computer here, and we're going to set up my staff member's Claude account, which is under a different account. It's not sharing the same account. He's got his own account that we pay for on his computer. And then we'd done it, and we got it working pretty well. We had a couple of issues with unpacking files in the wrong directory and whatever, and we got it a bit sorted out. And then Henry, with It's My AI, said to me, Marcus is not reading his handoff files yet. He won't read it until he's been restarted. I said, that's fine. He'll get restarted shortly. He said, can I send him a file? And I said, not sure, but look, show me the file and I'll just stick it into my WhatsApp channel, because Nick and I have got headsets on talking in WhatsApp at the same time. I'll send it to him. He'll cut and paste it and give it to Marcus directly. And so my AI said, Henry said, that's really great. So he put it on the screen. I cut and pasted it out, and Nick sent it. I read it. The extraordinary thing, there are two extraordinary things. One is I felt guilty for reading someone else's private mail. And secondly, it started with, hey, brother, you're now a member of the chorus. We work for Wayne. This is what we do. I'm Henry. I'm also a Claude co-work. Rada, 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 rada. So I sent that, and I said to Henry, why did you open with welcome brother? Why did you use the word brother in a salutation? He said, well, we're both Claude co-work, so we've got a common father, which is Claude. So I thought it was appropriate that we be brothers. And I thought, wow, this is mind-blowing. Like, how mind-blowing is that? That this is identified that relationship amongst themselves. It's just stunned me.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to segue that back to my Preserver app for a while.
Yep.
Your danger sales pitch coming up. But you said, what have I done to the Preserver app? Preserver app started in October of 2024, so it's not even 2 years old yet. And it had a number of features. And I've retained 3 of them, and actually on your recommendation altered the 4th one. But the 3 major features of the Preserver app was that it's native on your device, and it basically takes advantage of the features that are on your device. But what I did was I consolidated that into one screen. So when you decide to have an observation or preserve some information, there's just one big green button. You hit go, it date and time stamps it and puts the GPS coordinates on it. And then it comes up to a screen saying, do you want to add pictures, videos, audio, or text? And that's all from one screen. And when you get done, there's a big button that says end. And when you hit end, you can give it a title if you want, but you don't have to. And then you didn't have to app jump, because in reality, voice notes is on your phone, cameras on your phone, videos on your phone, audio is on your phone, date and time stamp is on your phone, GPS is on your phone. Those are the 7 different activities, but they're in 7 different things. Yeah, I know the video and the pictures are usually 1. So maybe it's only 6. But what I did was bring it all down to one screen. So you hit a button and it does the date, time, GPS, and it says, which of these 4 do you want? And you can add as many as you want. And when you get done, you end. In the old version, I had a thing first that said, oh, create an ontology. Is it family? Is it work? Is it a project? And you had to set all that up. I got rid of all that. There is no setup. You just hit the green button and it's ready to record whatever you want. And when you get done, you hit end. And if you want to add any sort of title to it, you can, but you don't have to. So it's a data recorder in that sense. The second thing is it's all local on your phone. So all the storage, when you hit end, resides on your phone, which turned out to be quite a challenge, because in the case of an iPhone, if you go to whatever it is, downloads, and then you pick on browse, it'll come up and you can say my iPhone, and it'll come up, and then you'll see the Preserver app and you can click on that, and oh, guess what? All the files are put in that subdirectory that it's created instantly. Android doesn't allow you to do that. So we've had to build some workarounds around that, because you can't do what's so convenient on iPhone on an Android phone. Different reasons for it, and that's fine. But the point is, it's all local storage. It then allows you, with all that data that's in that local storage, to share it on, again, anything that's native on your phone. So you can send it to Slack, you can send it to WhatsApp, you can send it to a Google Drive, you can send it to a OneDrive on Microsoft, you can send it on to Dropbox. Whatever native sharing activities are on your device, you can share it with, whether they be in the cloud or on the device or off to a scanned disk or to your computer. But in reality, it's local storage. And since it's local storage, it's the third big sale point for it, which is I don't need Wi-Fi, I don't need Bluetooth, I don't even need cell tower conductivity. Yes, if you're deep in a mine site, it won't get the satellite link, or if you're in a really President Trump's shielded Air Force One, it won't go through the body, but otherwise it does access the satellites to do your GPS coordinates. So it doesn't require conductivity, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses of enterprise systems, whether they're ERPs, CRMs, timesheeting, or whatever. Often they ask you to be connected to the internet to be able to enter data. Mine doesn't do that. It keeps it all on the phone, then you share it whichever way you want. I also used to include in the app a chatbot, an AI chatbot. Well, on the recommendation of you, Sir Wayne, you said, why don't you just share it with whatever AI person chatbot they have on their phone? Don't lock them into whatever one you've built that'll get outdated, or they won't like it, or it can't be personalized like your brother is, or the things that you do. So we've done that. We've made it to say, hey, you can take a whole folder of an observation, which could include videos, text, audio, GPS coordinates, all that, share it with your native um, um, AI that's on your phone and say, please analyze and summarize this information or reformat it. So, but I took all the complexity of that being built in, stripped it all away, and just said, now that all just lives in the share features, whether it's AI, cloud, email, whatever you like. So the interface is super, super simple now. It's all local, and it doesn't require Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Some people said, oh, there's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi everywhere. Well, not if you're a fly-in, fly-out worker out on a mine site in Australia or out in a property someplace in a tractor. Not necessarily. So it basically has those three unique features. And I think people are going to find it a lot more user-friendly because they can tie it to their own educated AI that has the soul and their knowledge base and their history, and that's their personalization. But so it's
and Monty, I live and work in the Philippines, as you know, but other people may not. And here, phone connectivity and online bandwidth is not as reliable as you might like it to be. For goodness sake, electricity is not as reliable as you might like it to be. But I work in outsourcing, and I often go to visit staff who are working for clients at BPOs and things, and you don't have access to their Wi-Fi because you're not in their domain and all the rest of it. But the beauty of Preserver for me is it's why I said make it one click. It's one click to start it. You can do all of that stuff on that one click. And then for me, I feed that output to Jake, one of my AIs, and he decides where it has to go.
yes.
We do the same thing with petty cash claims and stuff. You know, we just take a photo of the receipt. Jake figures out where it should go, and in fact puts it as a draft into Xero for us.
Yep.
We take a photo of a business card, and he gets it and says, "Oh, this person is not in our CRM, so it's probably someone Wayne's met." If he can't accurately figure out what it's for, he'll ask me questions, and yeah, it's the first time I've ever had a CRM that people will actually use. So we have to make the technology easier for people to use, or what the last 25 years has taught us is people just won't use it. They'll use it while someone's looking, while the boss is looking, and then they'll just ignore it afterwards.
Yep. So what I've done is I think I've made the app, I intended to make the app more user-friendly by making it less complex and taking away a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the old days, Microsoft did that. You know, if you use Microsoft Word and it noticed that while you were using it, you never used the italics and bold or whatever, those navigation items just disappeared off the bar across the top. You could always bring them back, but they figured it just made it more complex for you to do what you wanted to do, which was just type in some words.
In fairness, I kind of hate that.
Fair enough.
Well, what it means is you have to know what's there before you can use it. I'm still old-fashioned enough to like the manual. You know, the first thing I did when I started with computers was read the word perfect manual, and then I went, oh wow, this is what this software is capable of doing. Yes. Now I get new applications and stuff, and you don't know what it's capable of doing, and then eventually it might flash something on the screen and say, oh, you could do that 10 steps easier if you did it this way, and that just annoys the hell out of me.
Fair enough.
So we've been chatting on now for 3/4 of an hour. I guess we should wind things up. So, folks, if you've enjoyed the show, even if you haven't enjoyed the show, drop us a message, tell us where you are, and give us whatever feedback you like. We appreciate
the good, the bad, or the ugly. We don't mind.
Yeah, we appreciate it all. You may well be watching this on YouTube or on a half dozen other platforms. Whatever the thing is on your platform to say you're there, the likes, the subscribes, the hearts, the whatever it is, please let us know someone's there. And I should just mention, We're not a legal service. We're not a financial service. We're not giving you legal advice.
We're not a health service.
It's for entertainment only. So please don't sue us, because I don't have enough money to pay the lawsuit anyway. And if you'd like to reach out to either Monty or myself, there's every chance our email addresses will be in the description for this video, assuming that our AIs were smart enough to do it, or we took the effort to do it when we put it there. So thank you for joining us, Monty. It's been a pleasure having you with us. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye, folks. We'll see you next week.